Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining us today. The symposium is being recorded, and that will be shared publicly after the symposium is concluded. We'll also make sure to get you the slide deck. If you are experiencing any technical difficulties, please contact myself at amara.davis@noaa.gov, and all of that information has been pasted in the chat for you. Wanted to let you know that there is a question box feature. You will not have access to the chat, but you do have access to the question box feature. We only have time after every presentation today to answer about one question. If you have other questions, please add them to the questions box. Let us know which project team you're asking about, and we'll provide that information and your questions to the project team for their responses. Thank you so much for joining. Poe?
Hey everyone, this is Po Chi Feng from the National Sea Grant Office. Thank you for being here with us today. We're so excited to get this symposium going. First off, I'm going to introduce Dr. Jonathan Pennick, the Director of the National Sea College
I just
Program.
got on. We're up. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Dr. Pennick?
Yeah, thanks, Poe, and welcome everyone. It is our early afternoon here on the East Coast, and I know that spreads far to Alaska and Hawaii, and then actually to tomorrow with our colleagues from Guam. So thanks for joining us for an exciting couple of days here. I, with my colleagues in the Climate Program Office, also in the Research Office in NOAA, and the Office for Coastal Management and the National Ocean Service, welcome you all to this exciting first gathering of the teams who will be helping us shape our climate-ready workforce for the future. And I'll be back after Dr. Spinrad gives his comments. I want to provide an introduction, though, to him. Many of you may know Rick, and I'm using Rick because we know each other. It's my great pleasure to have Rick here to kick things off for this symposium. I know it means a lot to NOAA, to Rick personally, and obviously all of us. Rick is the Undersecretary of Commerce for Ocean and Atmosphere, as well as our NOAA Administrator. I'm going to go in a chronological order here very quickly. Rick received his BA in Earth and Planetary Sciences from the Johns Hopkins University and his master's and PhD in oceanography from Oregon State University. Early in his career, many of us knew Rick from numerous leadership positions he had with the Navy and the Office of Naval Research and the Oceanographer of the Navy, where he was awarded the Distinguished Civilian Service Award, the highest award given by the U.S. Navy to a civilian. Following his work with the Navy, Rick joined NOAA, where he served in numerous positions, including leading the Office of Oceanic and Atmospheric Research that Sea Grant and the Climate Program Office are in, as well as the National Ocean Service, where the Coastal Program is. That was from 2003 to 2010. Sorry, Rick, for giving all these dates that go back a while. Rick served as Vice President then of Research at Oregon State University from 2010 till 2014. He came back and served as NOAA's Chief Scientist under President Barack Obama from 2014 to 2016. Left NOAA again for a short period of time until returning to his current position as Deputy Undersecretary and NOAA Administrator in June of 2021. Throughout his storied career, much of which I'm not going to cover here, Rick has been a stalwart leader, supporter, spokesperson for the role of science in addressing the vexing problems our planet faces, including the climate crisis. Over the past 4 years, Rick has championed generational investments in NOAA science, monitoring, and engagement, including the Climate Ready Workforce Initiative that we're here to sit down and work together on this week. So without further ado, I'll turn things over to Dr. Rick Spinrad. And Rick, it's all yours.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate that very kind intro. And good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. I'm actually in Las Vegas, where it's good morning for me, about to head off to a major conference with our colleagues at Amazon. But it's great to be with you here today to talk about what is really our blueprint for a climate-ready workforce. I think most folks on the call know that a core priority at NOAA is to build a climate-ready nation, and that means including all of its component parts, such as strengthening our coastal communities and resources like fisheries and ports. What's the downside of not having a climate-ready workforce? Well, a climate-ready nation requires that workforce, and we're counting on workers to have the knowledge, the skills, and the abilities to tackle the impacts of things like extreme weather and climate change. And that's why this initiative is at the heart of our mission at NOAA, to build resilient futures in every corner of the country. Climate resilience has really emerged as a kitchen table issue for every community, every family, every corporation in the US. And even though 2024 isn't over yet, we've already seen $24 billion disasters this year. There's no such thing as a climate haven anymore. And as our teams in Asheville, North Carolina can attest to the fact, no one is excluded from the consequences of climate change. In the wake of Hurricane Helene, our own website tracking the billion-dollar disasters experienced a service interruption. And these kinds of impacts are being felt across the public sector too. Extreme weather events this year have devastated businesses across the Southeast. Last year, we broke the worst kind of records. It was the hottest year ever recorded, and there were $28 billion disasters across the country. Becoming more resilient is going to demand that climate-ready workforce with those unique knowledge, skills, and abilities. And increasingly, my team and I are seeing communities come up with promising resilient solutions, only to then realize that they don't have the right workforce to bring them across the finish line. At NOAA, we want to make sure that the on-the-ground implementation can keep pace with innovation. I'll give you an example, one that I'm personally familiar with, having visited the site. We're supporting implementation of the Bucktown Living Shoreline project in Louisiana, which is requiring a workforce with the skills needed to design and construct a cutting-edge project which combines green, blue, and gray infrastructure to protect a federal levee system with nature-based solutions. Additionally, we're also focused on closing existing knowledge gaps by bringing communities up to speed on training and resources we already have. An example of that is in American Samoa, where contaminated groundwater led to the closure of hospital outpatient clinics because the staff were not trained to test leak detection or manage water loss from the well. The Climate Ready Workforce Award will ensure that water utility workers have the training they need to monitor groundwater in the face of threats from things like rising sea levels and land subsidence. In the private sector, we're also seeing similar workforce needs. We're funding the Industry Proving Ground Initiative with funds from IRA, which will fill critical data gaps for private industry, who are going to need workers to deploy new climate data and tools to address climate risks in industries like engineering and insurance and retail. Similarly, all of your projects will build new connective tissue across the workforce, which will enable us to more effectively and equitably share best practices as our resilience toolbox deepens. The risks posed by extreme weather are not borne equally by all communities. That's why we've made sure NOAA's investments are meeting the needs of all communities, especially those that have been disproportionately affected by climate change. These same communities too often are on the sidelines of our labor market. That's why NOAA is focused on recruiting and retaining a diverse workforce and ensuring historically underrepresented communities benefit from economic opportunities in this resilience workforce. As our collective challenges become more formidable, we're seeing the demand signal for climate resilience support skyrocket. In July, some of you know that we announced a $575 million program for awards through NOAA's Climate Resilience Regional Challenge. And here's the kicker. We received $16 billion with a B billion in proposals. That's a demand signal of nearly 30 to 1. So a skilled, diverse, climate-ready workforce will drive our ability to meet this kind of demand in the years to come. The Climate Ready Workforce Initiative comes at a time when we are seeing unprecedented investments in resilience efforts across the country. Bank of America alone estimates that within 5 years, there will be a potential market share of over $2 trillion in climate adaptation. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and Inflation Reduction Act have supported historic investments that have built a first-of-its-kind network of resilience infrastructure, and now you all are part of that. Overall, we've invested $4.7 billion at NOAA from IRA and BIL to fund cutting-edge climate data and services. These resources equip decision makers at all levels with essential environmental intelligence to take informed action and protect lives and livelihoods. During my time as the NOAA administrator, I have had the honor and privilege of traveling the country to see BIL and IRA funded projects in action. These projects are not theoretical. They are demonstrations on the ground that showcase successful investments in lives and livelihoods. They create good jobs and serve as an on-ramp to higher paying jobs with benefits for underserved and unserved groups. There are projects like upsizing culverts in Rye Harbor, New Hampshire, which will improve fish passage, enhance salt marsh habitat, and prevent costly flooding and erosion, protecting roads and businesses. Projects like developing green infrastructure solutions to reduce stormwater flooding in underserved communities like Moss Point, Mississippi. Projects like restoring riparian habitat in communities like Pescadero, California, that will not only restore salmon runs on a stream where they were once thought extinct, but also deliver more sustainable water supply for farmers, delivering a win-win for both farmers and fish. All of the projects NOAA has funded through BIL and IRA will deliver countless benefits to the communities they're serving. Every dollar that we are spending now to build resilience will save us by between $6 and $12 in losses avoided in the future. And your teams and the workers you will train will be part of delivering this brighter future. The tools, data, infrastructure we have today, things like advanced scientific capabilities, GIS-based systems, vast observational data, simply didn't exist years ago. We now have resources like the Climate Resilience Toolkit and partnerships with groups like the Climate Mayors, who are helping us provide the training, data, and hands-on engagement that communities need. Take the work being done by the Washington State Board for Community and Technical Colleges. They are expanding traditional education pathways by incorporating a holistic approach to train both tribal and non-tribal graduates. These future employees will have the tools to lead, steward, and co-develop climate resilience efforts in any sector they pursue at tribal or non-tribal workplaces. Indigenous communities have a deep historical knowledge of sustainable environmental practices that we should make sure are represented in planning efforts. We're not just talking about training city planners or scientists, but about expanding the vision to include the entire ecosystem of workers, from blue-collar trades to high-tech experts. From the engineers and architects designing our built environments to the laborers building the infrastructure that will power our cities, the climate-ready workforce efforts will provide essential training for a whole range of trade skills. So I want to thank everyone who's contributing to these projects for the important work that you are championing. Your efforts will build a workforce that can meet the challenges of the 21st century head-on, bringing together scientists, engineers, tradespeople, and local leaders to build a sustainable, resilient nation. Together, we are creating something extraordinary, a workforce dedicated to our future. These significant investments have allowed us to move the needle and get these really transformative projects funded. I really look forward to seeing the impacts these projects will have. Thank you for this opportunity to share these thoughts. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Dr. Pinnock.
Thanks so much, Rick, for joining us and for your leadership. And you summarized the investments and where this initiative fits in very, very well. So thanks for that. And thanks for joining us a little bit early in the morning from Mountain Time, I guess. So I've just, in a minute, you're going to be introduced to the NOAA, the federal side of the CRW, or the Climate Ready Workforce team. That's composed of individuals from Sea Grant, from the Climate Program Office, and the Office of Coastal Management. One point I'd like to make is that these NOAA offices were not established strictly to run the IRA and BIL investments. Obviously, those are generational type investments that we've had over the last several years, and we're getting moving now on this IRA investment. But the programs are chosen because of specific capacities that we have within NOAA. Long-term, in most cases, place-based investments in climate science, in community engagement, education, technical assistance, workforce development, and the list goes on. So this is what NOAA has been doing. And we're proud as a group to be able to work in this space on the initiatives that you're involved with, and we really look forward to working with you. I'm going to take just a minute using my program, the National Sea Grant College Program, as an example. And if we can, Mara, I'm not sure who's running the slides, if we could move up to the first slide, which has I think you have it there. And I'll just go on, but it would be yeah, thank you. One more. Thanks. And if you can see this, one back, please. So for Sea Grant, if you can go backwards 2 now, I think that's good. The map would be the one. Thank you. Okay, we'll get this down. But using Sea Grant as an example, and my other colleagues may or may not have slides available. They have other things they're going to talk about, but I think it represents the point I'm trying to make here. Sea Grant has had for 58 years a national presence, place-based. We only have 25 federal employees in our office here in Silver Spring and in the DC area, and we've got 1,200 plus employees who are out doing work in each of the coastal and Great Lakes states and the territories of Guam and Puerto Rico, with extensions beyond that to American Samoa and the Virgin Islands and others. In that rich 58-year history, this federal-state partnership has been at its core a reason why Sea Grant is engaged in both the data creation, the extension of that, I'll go in a minute to that, and then ultimately to education and workforce development. We currently have 34 programs in our network. If you go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Sea Grant, when it was created, was modeled after land grant. Many of you are aware of that. Each of our states has a land grant institution within it. And the core of land grant and Sea Grant is that full integration of research, expanding knowledge, answering critical questions that the communities have through and connecting that science to the people and the communities that use it. And we call that at times extension or engagement. And then off to the right, the education that can take place in many different ways, and workforce development. And it's that full integration, and it's doing that on a long-term basis that is really made our program, but my colleagues in CPO and in OCM likewise have long-term engagements in the communities. You bring that expertise from your universities, from your public policy, from your management perspectives, and are critical, absolutely critical to getting this work done and connecting all of those pieces. And we think it is that integration that is what is critically important for success. And then my final slide, please. For Sea Grant, and again, each of the components that are working on this initiative, we have 4 strategic focus areas: healthy coastal ecosystems, resilient communities and economies, sustainable fisheries and aquaculture, and then environmental literacy and workforce development. And all of our 34 programs and our national office work towards those goals. And what is happening with the climate affects every one of those strategic areas for the community partners we have, for the individuals, for the businesses who are working out there, who you are engaging through your projects in one way or another. And that, so it is important to Sea Grant's core, what you're doing in developing a climate-ready workforce. And it will be through that long-term, sustained effort that we're going to be successful. I'd just like to thank you before I sign off for being here this week, for your commitment to developing and training individuals and working in the communities, bringing tools to them that they will need to address the challenges. And that's not only in your communities that we look for success. We've asked for metrics. How many people are you doing? But as important to me is going to be the models from some of you are working with relatively small communities, others with some of the largest cities in the nation. And it is going to be across that spectrum that we learn together about how to do the workforce development better and to be as effective as we can. And in the future, I expect that that is going to move well beyond this, the environment that you're working with, the people that you're working with, to make a difference for all of us and all of the communities that are addressing the impacts of climate on their being, on the health of the ecosystems they live in and they work in, and on the resilience for the communities and the economic development. So thank you again, and I will turn it back over to Poe.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pennick, and thank you so much, Dr. Spinrad. That was great. So we're going to take a brief moment to just kind of introduce you to your NOAA teammates. I think many of you guys are familiar with us, but I know there are some in the audience who are not working with us regularly. For those who are not speaking, I'm going to just send a friendly reminder to make sure to stay off camera and mute your microphones. And now I'm going to call up each team. So I'm Po-Chi Fung from the National Sea Grant Office. I'm a climate ready workforce specialist. Joshua?
I'm Joshua. I'm the federal program officer for all of these awards currently. I'm the team lead for the Sea Grant side of the CRW activities. I do a lot of other things, but I won't bore you with those. So excited to work with you all.
And I'll jump in here as another member of the NOAA's National Sea Grant Office. My name is Mary Collins, and I serve as an administrative specialist on this Climate Ready Workforce Initiative and also several other initiatives that we work on and partner with across the National Sea Grant Office. So pleased to see you all here, and I'll kick it back to Poe.
Thank you so much. And now we're going to have our awesome Climate Program Office teammates. Mara, can you advance the Climate Program slide, please? Go ahead, Frank.
Can you hear me? Oh,
Yes,
there
sir.
it is. It finally kicked off. It was just the whirly gig of microphone was going on. I was like, not now. So nice to be with you all today. I'm Frank Niepold. Some of you already have met me. I'm the Senior Climate Education and Workforce Program Manager in the NOAA's Climate Program Office. Another key person for you that is not here today, but she is taking a incredibly well-deserved vacation with her family, is Nicole Rucker, who is one of our program coordinators in the Climate Program Office. And that, Ned, don't take a drink right as I'm about to throw it over to you. Come on, man. And then I'm going to, Ned, why don't you introduce yourself, please?
Well, I don't think anyone will mind if I get caffeinated and energized. It's really great to be here and to see the launch of these programs. I am Ned Gardner, and I'm a program manager in the Climate Program Office for this program, but also for the Climate Smart Communities Initiative. I'm also a manager of the Climate Resilience Toolkit, which we will be using as a collective team as our knowledge sharing platform. And we'll be working closely with everyone introducing themselves right now. But for me, what I'm excited about is working with you, because I've been doing engagement work to translate climate information in different contexts for the last 15 years. And you are a very important audience for me. So you'll be getting to know me more in coming months. Back to you, Poe, to introduce
Thank you
the
so much,
OCM
Ned.
team.
And now we'll have our colleagues at the Office of Coastal Management. Annie? Oh, and there's Kenneth. Great. Annie first.
Hi everyone, I'm Annie McDowell. I'm an instructional designer with NOAA's Office for Coastal Management, and I am providing instructional design and technical assistance support for the Climate Ready workforce. Over to Kenneth.
Hi everyone, I'm Kenneth Rayner. I serve as an instructional systems specialist with the Office for Coastal Management. And Annie and I, with the other team members, we serve as an instructional design team that helps with learning products associated with the digital coast. And we are also very excited to be able to help and assist, especially as it pertains to the training-based community of practice that we're getting up and going. Thank you, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you so much for joining us while you're on holiday, Kenneth. We really appreciate it. So we are a little bit ahead of schedule, and I love that. Better early than late. We are going to go start on the next section with awardee introductions. We're going to have 7 minutes for each project. At the 6-minute mark, I will hold up my hand to let you know. I'll pop my camera back up, hold up my hand, and let you know that you've spent 6 minutes and you have 1 more minute left. I will not be cruel and turn off your camera or mute you until you force me to, but I anticipate that everybody will abide by the time limit so that we can all complete our agenda and make sure everybody got equal amounts of time. So just a quick reminder go ahead, Amara.
I was just going to say really quickly, Roderick, if you don't mind turning off your camera until it's your turn to speak. And also there's some helpful information in the chat that'll help you to change your name to Roderick, not Pochi Fung.
Thank you. So we'll get started. First up is Glenda, Maya, and Irene from our Tribal Stewards project. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong section. Our Boston friends. Sorry, Irene. Sorry, Glenda. It's the Boston. Right now we are starting with the Boston project. Apologies. Let's see.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Are you going to advance the slides?
Yes, once you tell me next, I'll advance the slides for you.
Awesome. Good afternoon or good morning, everyone, depending on where you are connecting from. My name is Sara Tornabene. I am the Assistant Director of Policy at the City of Boston Worker Empowerment Cabinet, and I'm here with our Deputy Chief, Jody Sugarman-Brazan, and we will provide an introduction of our project, which is called the Greater Boston Climate and Coastal Resilience Workforce Alliance. We slightly changed the name to better represent the work that we will be implementing in the course of the next 4 years and to better align that with broader efforts at the City of Boston in the climate and coastal resilience spaces. And we can advance to the next slide. So the Greater Boston Coastal Resilience Jobs Alliance, or Climate and Coastal Resilience Workforce Alliance, is an equity-based partnership that brings to the table a wide variety of different stakeholders, from recruiters, trainers, wraparound service providers, educators, unions, employers, etc. And the work of the Alliance will focus on training 645 workers over the next 4 years. And these workers will be placed in jobs that will advance the 5 strategies that you see here on these slides. So mainly these strategies center around green infrastructure and nature-based solution, water, wastewater, and stormwater systems, critical flood and coastal protection infrastructure, municipal infrastructure services, and especially emergency preparedness and response capabilities. and also increasing climate and coastal resilience awareness through community education and outreach. And these strategies and the goals for our project were identified based on labor market analysis for our area and reports, plans, and studies that were conducted in the greater Boston area in the past 5 to 10 years. And we can go to next slide. So our area or service location area is we are located in the northeastern part of the country. Our project focuses on Massachusetts and New Hampshire, especially the eastern part of Massachusetts. But the alliance partners are located in these two states, and our goal is to expand the alliance throughout the course of the grant and include more partners that are located in that area. Next slide. Just a brief overview of the internal team and supporting the work of the backbone organization. We have on the strategy and operation team our Chief Worker Empowerment Cabinet, Ring Nguyen, and our Deputy Chief, Jody Sugarman-Brozan, and myself. We also have a collaboration across different agencies, cabinets, and offices at the City of Boston. And specifically, I want to mention our climate experts, Oliver Sellers Garcia, who is the Green New Deal Director and Commissioner of the Environment Department, Christopher Osgood, the Director of the Office of Climate Resilience, and Kay England, the Director of the Office of Green Infrastructure. We also have several staff members internally supporting this work through administrative support, general support, financial support, procurement support, and a lot of staff members who were instrumental in the application of this grant. Next slide. And this gives you a sense of other key partners. So this work will not be possible without the variety of stakeholders that decided to come on board with us and support this work. We have a variety of employers, large businesses and public sector employers. We have also small businesses who committed to this work. And then we have a variety of expertise and partners in the climate, workforce, union space, training partners, partners supporting our community outreach efforts, economic development efforts, and partners providing wraparound support. Next slide. Can we advance to next slide? Okay, so one expected outcome and something we are excited about. I'll let Jody cover this.
Thank you so much. So thank you, Sarah, and good afternoon. Good morning, everybody. This grant and the work that we are doing to build the alliance that Sarah's described is very much linked to all of the planning and work that the city of Boston has done to be a climate ready Boston, to build our resilience. So we're really excited that this project is going to be specifically linking underrepresented and disadvantaged communities to good jobs, enhancing coastal and climate resilience in the Boston area, and really building the climate ready workforce needed to advance our climate resilience agenda in Boston. We refer to that as the Green New Deal. And that Green New Deal is really not just focused on building climate resilience, but using policies that also address economic, social, and racial inequities while advancing health, livability, and justice in our neighborhoods for all Boston. So this grant will be a huge tool towards advancing the goals that we have and providing that climate ready workforce. I also have to do a quick thank you to the NOAA team. Yesterday, we had a big press conference announcement of our grant, as well as the first meeting of the Alliance, including our training partners and many of our employers. And the team from NOAA, Ned and Frank, gave a fabulous presentation. I highly recommend you work with them to give a presentation to your project team. And I particularly want to thank Assistant Secretary of Commerce Janie Bavishi, who traveled to Boston to help us celebrate and launch our initiative. Happy to share with folks the video of the press conference, which was really fabulous, and wanted to thank the team. That's it.
Thank you so much for the shout out, Jody, and I'll let Janie know. We really appreciate you all. Next up, we have the CREST, the Climate Resilient Skills Training Program. So Roderick and Amy, if you guys are here, please turn on your camera. Thanks, Roderick.
Okay, do you have the presentation or do I hit share and do it off of my computer?
We have it. Just say next slide when you'd like us to advance. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'm Roderick Scott. I live in a historic coastal Louisiana community that has managed to get itself 86% elevated. So we can take 9 feet of water and come back in a week and a half. We come from a little bit different than most all the other grant programs. We're developing the workforce that's going to adapt the buildings, which is the other part, nature-based, and then the buildings all are side by side, really at the coastline. And so we've got to prevent our buildings from flooding. So we have developed a collaborative project that is known as CREST. You'll see this logo. We just got this finished last week. Next slide, please. And we're very excited to be a part of this whole group. So basically, just give everybody a background. We're running out of time. Since 2014, we've been raising the rates of insurance on the old buildings that were built before flood maps in our flood zones. We are now halfway to actual risk flood rate. The insurance is becoming unaffordable at this point, and in a decade it will be unaffordable. The problem is that high flood insurance rates are going to impact the mortgageability and insurability of our buildings, and the banks have told us that we're looking at a 40% devaluation of buildings in the flood zone that were built before flood maps that are out of compliance, getting flooded every single time within 20 years. Next slide. It's an important backgrounder that you understand. I was just in Boston down at the Wharf District and looking at the amazing work that the building owners, property owners, are doing until the Corps of Engineers, hopefully, project comes in. But they're doing it themselves, which is great. The deployment location is in Southwest Louisiana. During COVID in 2020, it took 2 hurricanes back to back, 17 miles apart, a Category 4 and a Category 3. 100% of the building stock was damaged. They've lost 13,000 people out of the region. We are building 3 gigantic natural gas terminals to ship natural gas to Europe. So we're not only in a very strategic, important area for the nation, producing oil and gas to fuel our country. Understand, we're in a dialogue here with our coastal people and the changes in the climate and what's causing all that, but we have to adapt our buildings. And so that's the deployment location. We're working with our partners at the local technical community college, and they are very excited to have this program come in. The Corps of Engineers is moving away from levees and dams and big structures and focusing on buildings because of this limited time frame that we're now in. They've told us to be ready for 250,000 buildings in the next decade. Next slide. Oops. Oh, and there's our project location. Louisiana has 4 of these projects for a total of 20,000 buildings that are going to be elevated and dry flood proofed to prevent them from getting flooded and preserve their values. This is the southwest region of Louisiana where we're seeing a maximum coastline loss. There are no levees going in here. They don't have the population to support levees, so they have to do their buildings And as I said, it's a very important strategic energy location for the country and sending gas to Europe because of Putin cutting off Europe from natural gas. So that's where we're going to be. The Corps of Engineers project is dedicated only to the income challenged and disadvantaged community property owners, not the oil and gas workers and all of those other things. So it's a very good supportive program for that population base that is so impacted by these changes in the climate, the insurance, and potentially the property values. Next slide. The little squirrels are moving. There we go. So our key members and collaborators, simple chart, not as great as that Boston one using the grant circle wheel thing. That was awesome. We have industry, which is the structural elevation companies, the dry flood proofing companies, the elevation machine that is only manufactured in the U.S., has no certification program or training program. Our industry is 20 years old, full speed ahead, growing like crazy. We have to have a workforce development program to expand our industry by 2,000% in a decade, much like the space program when we decided to go to the moon. So then we have LSU, our state ag university, with the Sea Grant program within them. We also have one of the nation's leading education providers on climate and climate science, going to help us with our curriculum development. We have this company called eLearning, which is this virtual learning group that really started coming online before and during COVID, has done a lot of technical education curriculum development, and we're very excited. So the curriculum that they're developing is both classroom and laboratory in Spanish and English to begin with. We envision this going globally, and now with AI, we can make it into any language that we want and educate populations around the globe on how to adapt their own buildings, not coming in and trying to do it for them, but teaching them how to do it, and then hopefully providing them the equipment and systems to then do that work themselves, especially the island nations. And then we've got a couple of other, our workforce development, disadvantaged job tracking group, recruiting group is an African American group of businessmen that in the 1990s, they lived in Atlanta and 30 years ago. And when they got the Olympics, they didn't have the workforce to build the Olympic Village. They went into the lower income neighborhoods, people of their own color and backgrounds historically, recruited them, brought them into the trades. So when we do our work, every trade works. So it's a really wonderful opportunity to work with this group, and they're very excited to help us recruit from these lower income, disadvantaged, multifamily kind of housing complexes and housing groups in there where the disadvantaged, underskilled workers will benefit the most from this program. Next slide. And I'm almost done, I swear. Oops. I know there's another slide, probably a finish slide. So key outcomes, co-benefits providing skills critical for integrating, mitigating flooding from increased frequencies, increased economic development opportunities for low-income marginalized communities, and long-term career paths, because this is really multi-generational, adapting our buildings to the changing climate. Next slide.
Thanks, Roderick. We appreciate you. Great. And next up, we have the Empowering a Resilient Workforce for American Samoa with Kelly. Kelly.
Talofa from American Samoa. I serve as the American Samoa Sea Grant Extension Agent, part of the Hawaii program, but I'm based full-time in American Samoa at the one and only community college, the American Samoa Community College. And as Dr. Spinrad shared, we have had increasing issues with our drinking water supply, which we are 100% reliant on our groundwater for, because of our accelerated relative sea level rise because of subsidence that was generated in 2009 from two enormous earthquakes that caused the devastating tsunami in the Samoan archipelago. Unfortunately, we didn't fully understand the consequences of that in terms of subsidence for quite a while. And it's been quite a challenging process to get the feds to recognize that. It took about a decade. But now that we have, we're getting more support and we have better planning tools. Next slide, please. Okay, well, I'll just keep going. Okay, thank you. So for those who maybe are wondering, where is American Samoa? We are about halfway between Hawaii and New Zealand. We are the only US territory south of the equator. We are the only US territory in many ways, and I'll share a few of those that impact our workforce development here. So American Samoa is the only US territory that's unincorporated and unorganized. And some of the wonderful benefits of that include traditional land tenure has been fully retained until this day. You cannot own land here unless you are at least 50% American Samoan, and the vast majority, about 80% of our land, is still communally stewarded through the chiefly system. We have never had our indigenous people enslaved. We have never had our indigenous people lose their language. And so it's a very special place to me in terms of that really deep rooted sense of place and knowledge. And I think that might be one of the reasons why, despite our over 10 inches of sea level rise since 2009, we don't have houses falling in the ocean like the North Shore of Oahu or places in California, despite our lack of traditional Western sense of planning for land use or property zoning. So another interesting aspect of traditional land tenure is that we don't have any property taxes because that land is wholly owned fully by the families and the chiefs that steward it, and it's tied to the chiefly titles. Another interesting aspect of our unique governance by the feds is we have our own immigration system, completely separate from the US. So you don't need a US visa to come here. You do need an entry permit from American Samoa. So that has benefits, but also drawbacks. So a lot of our professional staff are brought in from other Pacific islands, independent nation islands. And that's great because the cultural divide is much smaller than folks from the mainland, but also very challenging because if we aren't able to get them US visas, they can't go take that test to become a professional engineer because we don't have our own engineering board here. We're the only territory that doesn't. And that is one of the goals of our project, is to try and begin the conversation, and if people are supportive, to stand up an engineering board. We do for the first time have a testing center here that can proctor those exams. And so now it's just a matter of bringing the few PEs together on island who are US professional engineers and saying, do you want to establish a board and create our own local licensing board for that? Okay, so next slide, please. And so our project team, as I said, I'm based here at the community college, and in partnership with our one and only utility company, which is a semi-autonomous government agency, and they run our power, water, and solid waste. They're called American Samoa Power Authority, or ASPA. And I had been reached out to by one of their water engineers. Her name is Sandra Cesposaro, who I believe is on the call with us. And she was looking for support because she had been born and raised here, been off island for her school, and worked in the military as an engineer for a while and came home during the COVID times, which American Samoa had our borders closed for a little over 2 years, fully closed except for some repatriation flights. And so that also caused challenges for our workforce because we weren't even able to bring in trainers, much less send people off island for the training they needed. So Sandra and I put together a proposal in partnership with their utility company's preferred trainer, whose name is Gary Bird, who I believe is also on the call. And he is based in Saipan and has done training in the past for the water division of ASPA. And we're really, really excited to be able to bring him down here for 2 months at a time, twice a year, so that he can work with their team, which he's already begun to do virtually, and help them get the training that they need to address the current day issues and hopefully the future issues because of the increasing salinization of our well field in the Tafuna area, which is our biggest producing well field. So we're really excited they're already getting moving on this work. We also have partnered with a group called False Cognitive Services, who produced an amazing coastal hazards online tool called Tautua, which is specifically built for American Samoa. And so they'll be using that to help build a map of their hotspot areas to help them address it. And then we will be hiring a project coordinator, but UH just accepted this grant like last week. So we're not quite to that point of hiring yet. Next slide, please. And then I just wanted to briefly share the list of folks from the UH side who have generously served as climate service practitioners. And my co-investigator is Beth Lenz, who serves as our Director for Diversity and Community Engagement up at Sea Grant. And then we have a bunch of folks who have worked on climate-related issues across the islands who are helping us out, including Katie Hinson, Victoria Keener, Carla Bizo, who built our sea level rise viewer for American Samoa, Brad Romine, and Eileen Nally. And so that's our group from the UH side. Next slide, please. So with that, I just want to say, Fafatai Sele Lava, thank you very much. And if you have any questions, there's my email and phone number. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kelly. All right. Thank you, guys. If you need to get up and stretch, I highly encourage you to do so. We have lots of introductions, but I swear this is all super interesting to me. So I'm excited to keep learning about all the projects. And next up, we have training a climate-ready workforce to manage the impacts of climate change on water resources in Ohio coastal communities. And we have Lorraine with us. Thank you, Lorraine.
Thank you, Phil. Hi, everyone. Next slide, please. I'm Lorraine Miralha. I'm an assistant professor of watershed modeling and data analytics here at Ohio State in the Department of Food, Ag, and Biological Engineering. And today I'm going to be talking about this huge effort we put together as a team to train a climate-ready workforce to manage the impacts, and specifically of climate change at Lake Erie in Ohio coastal communities. So next slide, please. I first want to highlight our service location. Specifically, we all know the importance of the Great Lakes, not only for the U.S., but for the world. And we all know that the Great Lakes is the largest freshwater body that we have. So we have to care for it because this is one of the regions that provide a largest amount of ecosystem service to the coastal communities around this freshwater system. So specifically here in this map, you can see that I'm highlighting urban communities in the coastline of Lake Erie, specifically the ones that are within the Ohio territory in the United States. But this map here is highlighting how climate vulnerable these communities are. And this climate vulnerability index, Ned here in the call today might know how to explain this very well. But we are here not only considering the probability of extreme events to get larger and more frequent over time, but also considering the socioeconomic status of each one of those communities. And as you can see, the strongest purple shades in this map actually represent how vulnerable these 4 red pinpointed communities are. And those are the 4 communities that we are focused on in this project. Next step, please. Next slide, please. So of course, putting this project together would not be possible without the lead team here. With some of them here in the call today, they work around the schedule to be here with us. Jay Martin, the distinguished professor of ecological engineering, the Food Ag and Biological Engineering Department here at Ohio State. Sharon Chavez, lecturer in humanitarian engineering here at Ohio State as well in the call. Asmita Muroka, a professor in assistant professor in extension and engineering at OSU. Christopher Winslow, the director of the Ohio Sea Grant, really critical at helping us and supporting us in the training and the partnership building stage of this project. Brian Wilson, associate professor in urban hydrology and stormwater systems here in our department, also in the civil engineering department at Ohio State. Abdullah Shafiz, professor in risk assessment or infrastructure risk assessment, helping us building trainings in that area. Trace Lepicki, also here in the call today, the associate director of the Center for Education and Training for Employment here at Ohio State. Jason Cervenak, also here in the call, the Education Outreach Director for the Bird Polo Center and Climate Research Center, and Patrick Sowers, Assistant Professor of Practice in the Humanitarian Engineering Program. So those are key lead teams helping us build an array of trainings in different levels to actually prepare at least 100 climate-ready workers to suffice the needs in the water industry at Ohio communities, coastline communities. Next slide. Not only the importance of the lead team, but without this huge array of partners, this project wouldn't be possible. We have more than 60 people listed that are, among these organizations and more. Other organizations have already reached out to us to join as a partner, as an employer partner, as a workforce connection partner after the award was announced. So I really appreciate everybody interested in this, in tackle this water industry and climate challenge need here in the Great Lakes. So we have a composite of not only NOAA partners, training support, and workforce connection partners, really critical community connection partners here with us, such as the Junction Coalition, Team McCog, and Cleveland Water Alliance. But we also have critical employer partners that have committed to help us place our trainees into the jobs within this next 4 years of this proposed effort. So thank you so much all for supporting us and, join us in this 40 years journey that not only will actually be built throughout these 40 years, but we are trying to build a base for a program that is, lasting for a long time. Next slide, please. So our key desired outcome here would be trained at least 100 individuals within these 4 very vulnerable communities of the coastline of Ohio here, and specifically fulfill the workforce needs in the water industry to safeguard the lake's ecosystem. Because we all know that among these 4 communities and others throughout the Great Lakes who have been having issues with extensive contaminants and pollution runoff that are being exacerbated by climate effects or climate change. And those have already impacted or increased the water bills in the state, impacted water drinking systems, and also highlighted stormwater and sewage overflows that have impacted the lake ecosystem as a whole. So our goal is to train people to tackle these problems and also suffice the needs of a tech-heavy workforce in these 4 Ohio communities for now. With that, I thank you all for your time. I think that is the next slide to just feel free to reach out to me And if you have any comments and questions, let me know.
Thank you, Lorraine. All right, with that, we're gonna get a little break. We'll do a 7-minute break. How's that? We'll reconvene at 12. I'm sorry, that's Pacific time. 3:07.
All right, welcome back everybody. Hope you had a nice break. It's now 3:07 on my Eastern time clock, and we will now continue with project introductions. So next up we have 5 amazing projects who will each have 7 minutes. To those presenting, this is a reminder that when there is 1 minute left, I'm going to come back onto screen and let you know you have 1 minute left by holding a finger up, and that's your cue to wrap things up. I will step in if you go over 7 minutes, and I'll try to do so as politely as I can. So with that, I am so pleased to hand it over to Glenda, Maya, and Irene, who will introduce the project Tribal Stewards, Cultivating Tribal Leadership and Equity in Natural Resource, Co-Stewardship, and Climate Resilience. Take it away.
Glenda, we cannot hear you. No,
We still
cannot
can't
hear
hear
you.
you.
Can you go into your sound settings and see if you can choose a different microphone? Potentially there may be 2 microphone drivers. So you should have a settings button that'll look like a gear, and you can click on audio.
Not
No,
yet.
we still can't hear you.
If we need to, we can skip ahead to the next presenters and come back as you get this figured out. Or Irene, is that working for you?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. Should we skip ahead or?
Yeah, I think if we could return back to us, that'd be good.
Okay.
That's
All right.
possible.
That is fine. Let me. Okay, so then what we'll jump to next is Los Angeles County Climate Ready Employment Council, and we will ask that
Hello, can you hear me?
team jump in and present. Hi, Kendra, thank you.
Hi. Yes, can you all hear me?
We can hear you fine, thanks.
Perfect, thank you. Greetings from the city of Long Beach. I'm here representing, my name is Kendra Madrid. I'm the Vice President of Workforce and Economic Development here at LBCC, and I'm presenting on the LA County Climate Ready Employment Council. And you may be thinking like the name LA County and you're in Long Beach, but this project really is a systems change effort of public-private, tribal, and community-based organizations and employers all working together to create an infrastructure to support climate resilient workforce here in LA County. And if you go to the next slide. And so just a little bit about our service area. We're in the city of Long Beach. I'm in the city of Long Beach, and we're going to be the backbone organization of this project. But the primary service area for the council is going to be LA County-wide, which is home to over 9.5 million people, 75% of whom are people of color and 14% which live below the poverty line. In LA County, we have 2 ports, 2 big ports in LA and Long Beach, which together comprise the San Pedro Bay port complex. And these ports are the busiest in the United States and are the 9th busiest in the world. And why I bring this up is because the communities near the port are heavily impacted by pollution and tend to suffer from other economic underinvestments. And so this project is there to help support the infrastructure needed to increase the number of jobs and opportunities these folks have in the surrounding communities that are impacted by different health issues and decreased economic opportunities. Next slide. So in order to do, so one of the things that we identified early on as part of this project is from the LA County Climate Vulnerability Assessment, and they identified several threats here in our county: wildfires, extreme heat, inland and coastal flooding, extreme precipitation, and drought. And so all of these things together, we identified that they threaten the stability of our electrical grid And then also there's a thing we're calling Peak 65, which is basically work shortages in the areas of water and area of water industry, in our water industry and our energy industry. And so, aligned with those threats, LBCC, as the backbone organization, has identified two initial sectors in water and wastewater, and also solar, which will be our primary focus for our immediate response. And when I present later on, I guess tomorrow, I'll dive a little bit deeper into our different levels of response to these identified threats. In order to do this work, next slide. In order to do this work, you can't do it without a group of partners, which all of you all have already identified. And so we have several partners within each of these categories. So our climate practitioner partners include the City of Long Beach's Office of Sustainability. We've also partnering with another a NOAA RESA program partner, which is from the California Nevada Applications Program, CNAP. And then also the project at USC funded by the Sea Grant, so that we can discuss ways in which the data that they have identified is useful to support the workforce assessment that RAND will end up doing to expand the identified, I guess, gaps in terms of the workforce needed for this project or needed in our LA County creator community. We have our workforce development partners, which includes our workforce development system, both here in Long Beach and in our SELA communities. We have a host of employers from Zeem, Great Alternatives, Energy Swell, who are also participants in this and have already pledged jobs. Our assessment hopes to uncover, that RAN will do, uncover additional partners. And actually I get emails every day saying, we want to be included, which is a great thing for us. We have education and workforce partners, workforce development partners. And what they will be doing is, again, helping identify different workforce curriculum needs. As the assessment identifies curriculum needs, the community college partners, we will all work together. LA County, Pasadena City College, we have a group of 19 colleges within our region who will work together to develop curriculum that aligns with the workforce gaps. And then we have our community-based organization and partners, Central Cha, Native American Indigenous Collaborative, and others, so that we can, again, meet the needs of those folks who are experiencing, are heavily impacted by our climate issues that were identified in our assessment. And obviously RAN, not like just in terms of a project evaluation, but again, in terms of additional assessment of the, again, workforce needs within our LA County region. Next slide, excuse me. And I think the biggest outcome from us, outside of just the numbers of people we're going to train, which I will get to at our later presentation, but really is to create an infrastructure to support LA County climate resiliency through training and placement related to key occupations that increase resilience to climate-related hazards. And that is really the overall point of this council is like, here in LA, there's a lot of silos. We have, some folks in some community colleges doing some work related to that are, for example, in Santa Monica, who are really close to the sea, and so they do sea work. And then we have people who are doing underwater projects, but there is no infrastructure really to look at all the climate resilient training and programs and placement activities that we have here in LA County that we can work together to address our climate-related hazards. And so we hope to be the convener of all of that work, and then create a process that is streamlined so that the community in which we serve across and around, 9.5 million people that we serve can benefit from these gaps in the workforce by supplying a pipeline of folks who are trained and ready to deal and support, again, our resilience to these climate-related hazards. And that concludes my presentation. I think the next slide is just my contact information, but more information to come during our longer presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kendra. And now we'll go back and see if the team of Tribal Stewards, Cultivating Tribal Leadership, is able to come off mute, and we'll go from there.
Is my sound working?
Yes, it's working great. Okay, take it away.
Thank you so much. White Haskell Halt, East Quees Glenda Bryler, Tali Hastapanatsa Halt. Hello, good day. My name is Glenda Bryler. I am a member of the Colville Confederated Tribes in Washington State. and I live and reside in Olympia, Washington. And I'm excited to talk with you. I'm also the Tribal Government Affairs Director at the State Board for Community and Technical Colleges, and I'm here to talk about, it's a very long title, but we go by SBCTC, and our Tribal Stewards program is a part of our Tribal Affairs Department. It's called Cultivating Tribal Leadership and Equity in Natural Resource Co-Stewardship and Climate Resilience. You can go to the next slide. So this is our team, myself and Maya, who is teaching right now. She is also a doctoral student and will introduce herself a little bit later, so I don't want to ruin that moment. And I'll let Irene come on and say a couple of words of introduction.
Hi, Irene Shaver. I work with Glenda on this Tribal Stewards project and am the program manager. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you. I'll go, and then next slide, please. So this is the state board for community and technical colleges, kind of the roadmap, which is led by a 9-member governor appointed board. And they advocate, coordinate, and direct Washington state system of the 34 public community and technical colleges. Each year, our colleges serve around 290,000 students of all ages and backgrounds in local communities across Washington state. And about half of our students are students of color. We are proud to say that we serve around almost 9,000 students who self-identified as American Indian and Alaska Native in the last academic year. Next slide, please. And so a little bit about our project is that over the next 4 years, the college system will use NOAA grant funds to support the Tribal Stewards Program, an initiative to, 1, support tribal students at community and technical colleges, 2, grow our own future generation of tribal leaders skilled in natural resource management, and integrate climate adaptation and traditional ecological knowledges, or otherwise known as Indigenous knowledge, into natural resource related curriculum for all students. And so, basically we will also, in addition, train all students, non-tribal students, to learn how to be good partners with tribes as co-managers and to uphold a lot of our federal trust responsibility and redesign existing programs to better serve our tribal students and future leaders in natural resources. And this is kind of the look, the map. So this is a map of all of the tribes, as you can see there in some of the orange colored. And then Dr. Irene Shaver put stars on there so you can kind of see where we are with the 6 community colleges and the 5 tribes that we will work with to advance this project. Peninsula College with Makah Tribe, Grace Harbor College with Quinault Indian Nation, Green River College with Muckleshoot Tribe, South Puget Sound Community College with the Squaxin Tribe, and the Spokane Community College and Wenatchee Valley College with the Cawville Tribes. And I think it's on to Irene, next slide.
This is our larger network. The state board is already well positioned to be a backbone as we oversee the 34 college system. We have the 6 colleges that have committed to do this work, as well as the 5 tribes that are in their service areas. 2 of those tribes are sub-awardees, the Quinault and Makah, and they're using their funding to provide scholarships for tribal members as well as internships. There's reserved funds for bringing on more tribal partners in all of these service areas, and we intend to engage up to 18 other tribes as internship providers, as employers, as partners in recruitment and K-12 outreach. The other employer partners that we've brought on are U.S. Fish and Wildlife and Department of Natural Resources, as well as various other employers in the natural resources field. There's a huge demand for students with skills that can work well with tribes, that have climate adaptation, as well as a huge tribal workforce need for natural resource professionals. So our climate practitioner is the UW Climate Impacts Group, which is the Office of the Washington State Climatologist, and they're going to be providing a climate camp for our faculty so that we can integrate climate adaptation into all these natural resource pathways. Next slide. Oh, Evergreen State is also our college, and we're working on the 2-year, 4-year transfer there, and having a coherent 2-year to 4-year tribal pathway. This is a quote from Cody Desitil, who's the executive director for the Colville Confederated Tribes. They're one of our largest employer partners, and they committed to hire many of our graduates. I'll just read this quote to you. Due to the urgency of the climate situation, many land management agencies are experiencing a lack of qualified natural resource personnel. The Colville tribe currently have 535 employees across 12 different natural resource disciplines. The Natural Resource Division currently has 146 vacancies, 50% of which are in this training zone that community colleges do the best. This is through this project, they believe that the Colville tribes will secure a skilled workforce. The only way we were able to, a big part of securing these tribal partnerships was that this is very much a demand of tribes. Yes, go on. Next one. Next slide. Yeah. So the anticipated outcomes, a lot of the one we're most excited about is really increasing the number of tribal students served by our community colleges. Is a natural matchup of place with community colleges and tribal communities. We're the most accessible post-secondary education provider, and we need to be more responsive to tribal communities. And so a lot of energy and time is dedicated to building tribal partnerships, supporting tribal and increased tribal enrollment, and then really holistically supporting tribal student success. And seeing that many students graduate out of our program is going to be a major success. These are the communities that have the most lived experience in climate adaptation, most experience in sustainable land and water management, and they're really underrepresented in our current natural resource fields. So we're excited to see them move into leadership roles. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Glenda. Thank you, Irene. And next we'll hear from Hannah Marie with Expanding and Strengthening an Indigenous Workforce for Climate Resilience in Alaska.
Thank you. My colleague Haley's also joining me. And before I begin, I just want to thank all the presenters for all their introductions. It's really amazing to see the cohort of work that we're doing here. Hiani Washte, I just said good afternoon in Lakota, the traditional language of my ancestors. My name is Hannah Marie Garcia Ladd. I'm the program director for the Indigenous Sentinels Network, or ISN, at the Aleut community of St. Paul Islands tribal government. I'm not originally from Alaska. I'm Sichangu Lakota, or Rosebud Sioux tribe descent, as well as Spanish ancestry. I was born in Colorado and moved to Alaska 3 years ago. And over the next few days, Haley and I will be discussing the project that we're really excited about on expanding and strengthening an Indigenous workforce for climate resilience in Alaska. And so I'll hand it over to Haley to briefly introduce herself.
Thanks, Hannah Marie. Kamagala, good afternoon. My name is Haley Edmondson. I am the academic director of the Bering Sea campus, the education department for the Aleut community of St. Paul Island. I'm a born and raised Alaskan. I'm not Aleut, but I've had the privilege to work for the Ununga community of St. Paul over the last 4 years, and I'm joining you today from Dena'ina Land in Anchorage, Alaska.
Awesome. Thanks, Haley. Next slide. So our project is focused on Alaska. It's a very vast region. If you see the map on the bottom right, it's showing you that if you were to properly map the state of Alaska on top of the continental US, we would be covering about 21% of the country, with rural and remote communities that are as diverse in culture and geography. So the map in the top right shows you the indigenous languages regions of Alaska, or the language boundaries that represent those traditional territories. And what that's really showing too is that in Alaska, there are 229 of the 566 federally recognized tribes in the United States. And so our project's geographical focus is covering most of Alaska, focused on those rural areas and remote communities. And in terms of why Alaska is essential for this type of work, is that as the Arctic is warming 3 times faster than the global average, Alaskan communities, especially indigenous ones, are experiencing significant climate impacts from coastal erosion, lack of access to traditional food, and so much more, all of which are affecting our cultures, ways of life, and local economies. And so our project is really proposing to accelerate the growth of jobs and opportunities within communities that are at the forefront of climate change. And our effort is to meet the growing need for local environmental data collection and analysis that are essential for decision-making and environmental stewardship in our region. Next slide. And so the focus is on providing tools for climate vulnerability and fostering community-driven environmental monitoring networks through ISN. ISN is a community-driven environmental monitoring network within and operated by the St. Paul Islands tribal government, and we're supporting technology development and data collection that's rooted in Indigenous data sovereignty frameworks. So we'll leverage the project funding to hire ISN program managers, an ISN technical advisor, and a scientific advisor that will support all the communities throughout our network and provide wraparound services for the communities that are going to also receive our trainings that are going to be led by Bering Sea Campus and Elizabeth College. So I'll let Haley introduce those collaborators.
Yeah, so as Hannah Marie mentioned, our last two key collaborators, Bering Sea Campus. This is the formal education campus entity of the Aleut community of St. Paul Island, and this is the campus and department that I lead with my team. We focus on both creating and providing culturally relevant and place-based curriculum and educational opportunities. But the rural nature and diverse cultures of Alaska that Hannah Marie showcased in the service location slide demonstrates the vast and unique need Alaska has for curriculum and programs that are centered in these principles. Our team at the Bering Sea Campus is the tribal education agency that looks to enhance that wherever possible. So K through 12, after school and summer programming, post-secondary education, and workforce development. Elizabeth College, this is Alaska's only tribal college located in Utqiagvik, Alaska, the northernmost city in the United States and located in the Arctic Circle. Identifying as a distinctly Indigenous institution that aims to enhance the local culture while helping its students gain a foothold in the economy of the 21st century. They are our strong collegiate partner on this project, as well as our primary post-secondary partner of the Bering Sea Campus. And this is due not only to the cultural focus they have in the classroom through weaving Inupiaq values, but also because they offer free tuition for Alaska Native and American Indian students. Elizabeth's goal is to create successful graduates who can incorporate their traditional values into modern life, and in doing so enhances both, which I think demonstrates the goal of our program so well. Next slide.
Thanks, Haley. As we just described, those are the backbone organizations within our project, all kind of connected to or within the St. Paul Islands tribal government. But of course, we're leveraging a lot of collaborations throughout the Indigenous Sentinels Network, including strategic partners within NOAA, the University of Alaska, Ocean Climate Observing Data Centers. We also have key partners for employment, including conservation nonprofits, federal and state agencies, and specifically a lot of tribal government offices and partners that have IGAP coordinators are looking to develop Guardian and Sentinel positions within Tlingit and Haida or Coerx region, and so much more. So this slide and visual will be revisited tomorrow, but just shows you the breadth of the partnerships that are part of this work. Next slide. I really like to also show this quote that captures the spirit of the network that we're operating in and working to expand, because we're really excited to see the growing recognition of Indigenous leadership and conservation. So this project necessarily isn't just about environmental monitoring and job creation, but it's about empowering our communities to take charge, supporting the knowledge, skills, and existing capacity to create lasting change, because our communities are capable. And with this project, we're really focusing on equipping the next generation of Indigenous leaders with tools, training, and opportunities to really lead in these efforts. Next slide. So our main goal with this work is really focused on empowering leadership, building capacity, and promoting resilience. So over the next 3 years, we'll be working to strengthen the ability for communities to gain access to training that will help them address the current need for place-based curriculum, as well as equipping individuals for skills and tools needed to monitor environmental changes. And so the bigger picture here is really working on creating a network and career pathways. Next slide. So one expected outcome really is the development of workforce positions within communities. So we're aiming to train about 50 people. And why that matters is that we're hoping to not only create jobs, but also engage youth and support current communities out on the land. So I'll pass it to Haley to wrap up on the important outcome of curriculum innovation.
Yeah, so in highlighting curriculum innovation, particularly I keep saying kind of some buzzwords, talking about place-based and culturally relevant. And when we talk about this in education, some of what that looks like in practice, and particularly for our project, is infusing and placing each community's traditional values and knowledge to an equal weight of the concepts of Western science and thought, traditional knowledge that has led Indigenous communities since time immemorial. But we also know in creating culturally relevant and place-based education models, our students are more successful because there is a relatability to the material that becomes essential for understanding, which further highlights the need of education that's responsive in such ways. So this dual focus of job creation and curriculum innovation strengthens regional resilience by aligning workforce development with real-world climate needs, ensuring cultural, economic, and environmental sustainability. Next slide. Teaching Kagasakun, that's a Nungam Tanu for we thank you all. We appreciate your time today, and we look forward to taking a deeper dive into our project tomorrow. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the email on our slide below. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Haley. Thank you, Hannah Marie. And next we'll hear from Keenock about climate resilience training to implement nature-based solutions in the Caribbean.
Wow. Thank you, everybody. I'm really excited and honored to work among you in these great projects. And my name is Kainik Riali Monroe, or just Kai, and I am here on behalf of our awardee, Protectores de Cuencas. And I am a scientist and project manager of the sub-award with Horsley Witten Group. And I'm excited to share our project titled Climate Resilience Training to Implement Nature-Based Solutions in the Caribbean. Next slide, please. We are located in the Caribbean, which is south of Florida, if you are not familiar. And I am located in St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands, which is in the lower right-hand corner. And our partnership with Protectores de Cuencas is in Puerto Rico. And we are excited to work together on these projects. Next slide, please. Our key project members are a partnership between Protectores de Cuencas in Puerto Rico and Horsley Witten Group. I am located in the U.S. Virgin Islands, but Horsley Witten Group is also located in the Northeast, in New England, in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island, and we work all over the place. We are also collaborating with the Climate Change Council in Puerto Rico and the Puerto Rico Department of Natural and Environmental Resources, Coastal Zone Management and Climate Change Program. And we are also excited to see what new project members we bring along in the U.S. Virgin Islands as this project launches. Next slide, please. We were asked to share one exciting outcome. One thing I didn't share, in the Caribbean, we are islands, and climate resilience is a thing that is a lived and real visceral experience. And our people are Indigenous tribes and Hispanic and Afro-Caribbean as the majority. And we are often limited by expertise and resources, and we are excited to develop curriculum to contribute to building to a more resilient future for all, especially in our region where we are hit by hurricanes and sea level rise and a lot of the threats of climate change. And we look forward to working with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Kai. And next up, we'll hear from Tatiana with Texas Green Workforce Collaborative.
Hi, I want to join in, excuse me, offering such gratitude to everyone who's presented. It's so inspiring to hear more of this work and learn with and from you all. We can go ahead to the next slide. So first up, I want to introduce our team. I also will try to be very brief for this specific segment. I believe that I'm first up after our break to give a little bit more long form. So I'm really using this space primarily to introduce us and share a concept. So a few other people in the room with us today that have helped and slayed at this work. I myself, Tatiana Cannon, am the CEO and founder. Jordan Goodrich is our Executive Director of Community Engagement. Emma Garcia is our Executive Director of Strategy and Innovation. Someone not pictured here is Brandy Clark Burton, who recently joined us in a consulting capacity as we learn and grow in 2025. So you might hear from some of them. I want to make sure that I've said all of their names and given them all their flowers for the hard work they have done to help launch this collaborative. You can head to the next slide. So I will be fully candid. This brief bio is 100% AI written, and you don't even have to read it if you don't want to. I include it here because I have learned that as a founder of something, you often have to say a little bit about yourself, which I am bad at often. However, the joke that I tell our collaborative is that if you would have asked me even a year ago, I would boldly proclaim that I am not interested in starting anything. I don't like the people who start companies. I'm like, that's so cool. Good for you that you loved something enough to do it. And I just didn't feel that way in my heart. And then I have worked in a number of nonprofits and for-profit spaces. I started my career primarily in education. I'm the first one in my family to go to college and a very prime example of how education can change a life. So I went to work fundraising and trying to achieve a better education system in Oklahoma. And I'm sure everyone will be shocked to know that I did not succeed. So I started working in a few other organizations, finding passions, and that's when I decided it was time for me to try to conquer climate change. So here we are. And with that, I am again, first generation queer, multiracial woman. And I know what it's like to be a professional in spaces with all of the capabilities and all of the smarts and none of the tools for success. And most recently, I moved to Texas a few years ago and was working with grassroots organizations, all focused on green workforce development. And we all were running into the same hiccups. And being me, I swung for the capital C change, capital C collaboration, and entered the Green Workforce Collaborative. So you can head to the next slide. So, what we formed, somewhat purposefully accidentally, is one of the largest nonprofit alliances in Texas that's focusing on the green workforce and job development. Specifically, how are we developing a group of diverse green leaders representative of the communities here locally? You can head to the next slide. So I'll fill in some more gaps when we speak again very soon. But this is representative of who is in the room. These are all, again, nonprofits, city entities. Many have different scopes, all have different scopes ranging in age. So think youth development, high school programming, all the way through recidivism efforts, helping those who have been recently incarcerated re-enter a workforce, or helping unhoused populations find meaningful work. So we have gathered them all. They all individually come with templates for how to do equitable workforce development for those populations and across a number of industries, including, again, nonprofits, a lot work with solar, wind development, agriculture, urban gardening, watershed protection, soil studies, irrigation. I could go on and on. And so my proposition is with our powers combined, we can do more good together. So you can head to the next slide. So this is our mission and vision. And typically, I have a background in education, as I mentioned. And so typically, this is when I would have someone in the room read these to give you a break from my voice. But I will go ahead and read them aloud. Our mission is to cultivate a vibrant, sustainable, and accessible green workforce by equipping with resources that foster a culture of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And our vision is to be the driving force in Texas green job development, creating a dynamic and diverse green workforce through wraparound services, networking opportunities, learning resources, and a steadfast commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and community. Next slide, please. That's it. I saved everything else and some of the editorials for when you see me next in just a couple of minutes. But I want to again thank everyone for the opportunity to share. I look forward to sharing more very soon. And we have, like I said, a lot of big vision, capital letter dreams, and are interested in sharing notes with any who are interested in doing the same. So it's wonderful to meet all of you. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Tatiana, and thank you to all who just presented our introductions. That is a wrap up of our introductions for today. And what we're going to do is take a 10-minute break before diving into awardee presentations, where you might see the same folks, but dive a little bit deeper into what it is they're doing with their projects. And so let's break and come back together at, let's see, my clock says 3:45 right now. So let's do 55 when we'll come back together. Whatever time zone you are, we'll come back at the 55. Thank you so much.
Hello. We're going to give everybody a few minutes to settle down. Thank you to all the project speakers who made such wonderful introductions to their projects. And I'm so excited to keep learning more about each of these projects and diving in a bit more. Couple of reminders. Each presentation will have 13 minutes. At the 12-minute mark, I will pop in and raise my hand to make sure you know that it is time to wrap up and that you have 1 minute remaining. For these project presentations, we are going to be able to take one question after each project presentation. Please make sure to utilize if you look at the top of your GoToMeeting box, there is a question mark icon. That is where you should leave all your questions. We will be answering some of them, but we will be compiling a larger set of the questions and making sure they're routed to the correct project so that folks can share answers to all the inquiries that are coming in. If you don't know where the question box is, please make sure to contact one of our support, amara.davis@noaa.gov. That would be really helpful. But please make sure to let us know who you're directing your questions to. So leave the name of the project or the speaker, and that would be really great. Thank you. So first up, we have Tatiana again from the Texas Green Workforce Collaborative. Tatiana, ready?
I think I'm coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can people see me? It doesn't really matter as long as you can see the slides. To Amara / my Wizards of Oz, we can go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Thank you. I changed my hair during the break to keep all on your toes. This is just me with other different hair. This slide is really a placeholder to share more that as the founder of the Green Workforce Collaborative, there are a few key tenets that we believe in and that we have incorporated into our mission, vision, and core values. And the ones I can speak to specifically is that all humans deserve a right to thriving wages, good careers, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, base level rights of existence. And I believe that doing that work and figuring out how to make that happen should be joyful and restorative work. I believe that we really can transform and organize and have transformative outcomes through organizing. And for better or worse, I believe in the power of the people. And as I shared, the rising tides raise all ships mindset. And so that is how we came to the vision of the Green Workforce Collaborative. Amara, you can actually skip probably the next 2 slides. I think slide 5 is where we can land because people have seen this. So here's the premise. Here's how we got here. We are in Texas, as shared, and we have all of these great, primarily grassroots nonprofits, city entities, disparate efforts to work with different segments of the community that all touch the green economy. So these folks bring mentorship and support for each network and population as needed. They bring upskilling and green job training. They also have targeted recruitment and outreach efforts, different certification and career development efforts, and all of those supports are required to truly advance an equitable workforce. I, again, speak not only from experience, but I think all of us, and I'm so invigorated hearing all of the projects that have been shared. We all know that those who are most impacted by climate are typically those with the least power to do anything about it. And so that is the proposition that these are the key tools that we need to advance that workforce. And how can we build that as a coalition instead of going at it alone as disparate efforts? We can go to the next slide. I'm going to grab a drink of water too. Okay, so the evolution and the story goes, I was leading a small grassroots nonprofit called Solar Austin here in Austin, Texas. And we had a program called the Pathways to Clean Energy Careers Program, focused specifically on solar. The city of Austin launched an initiative called the Green Workforce Accelerator. They have now run it a few times in partnership with other local consulting groups. It's a wonderful initiative put on by our city. And the first photo you see here is me presenting on the need for ecosystem change within the solar industry to help better equip companies with diverse candidates. The moral of the story that we had discovered companies were not averse to hiring diverse candidates in any way, shape, or form, nor were they averse to paying them well. However, they just didn't have the time to do the diligence of the recruitment and the supports that I listed previously. So the accelerator helped us think through that. And simultaneously, for those who are connected to solar, you might know that the solar industry had entered a very strange time of hiring itself, and layoffs and company collapses, things like that. So, somewhere in the middle, I was speaking about the Green Workforce Accelerator at a conference here in Texas called EarthX, and had a few of my friends there that had also participated in that accelerator. And I had seen a grant that I knew was too large for my organization. However, I knew we could do it. And I said, what if we all do it together? And that is the birth of the Green Workforce Collaborative. And from there, we have grown to a larger team. I include this picture to share some of the folks whose jobs we are able to support, including an international intern from Morocco. I'm actually headed to Uzbekistan in March to share some of the efforts of what we're working on. So it has been quite a ride and only a couple years long, but I have officially accepted that we are doing this. And you can head to the next slide. And so here's what we are doing is we are giving the unique value proposition that we have a holistic and inclusive approach that is essentially HR as a service. Tell us where someone needs to go, what they need to be trained in, how we can get them paid, and let's figure out the pathway to that. We have proven expertise and strong partnerships across a number of organizations that are already deeply embedded in the community, and we're continuing to identify and expand key partnerships to expand the value proposition to cover the holistic approach that we have taken. We have high impact and sustainable outcomes because we're not doing it alone. We have combined our efforts. That means if one of us falls, the rest are still there next to you to pick you up. And we also get to pool our resources, our curriculum, our concepts, and therefore we have innovation and scalability, because it turns out the answer to big capital C collaboration is just getting people in the room and sharing information and sharing best practices. So we can go to the next slide. So this is where things got interesting. This was but a concept funded by small grants until NOAA reached back out to us and let us know that this idea seems sound and they were interested in helping fund this work. So if you go to the next slide, I believe if I'm remembering correctly. Okay, so here's what we told NOAA is basically we said, hey, we've gathered everybody together, we've crunched the numbers, and we know that we can create at least 500 new green leaders into this growing economy through this grant. And we are so excited that we think those numbers are not only achievable, but we also hope to answer through this process some of those big questions, like what are the key resources a candidate might need in order to enter different segments of the green economy? What are key education inroads that we can offer, and at what level can we introduce those? We want to take a snapshot of what even is the green economy. Texas is the 8th largest economy in the world. I think that's like more than France or something like that. And so we also are like one of the largest energy producers, if not the largest. So we've got a lot to account for, and we need a workforce for that. And we're hoping to answer some of those big questions as a coalition so that we can then share that roadmap far and wide. We can go to the next slide. So I actually left this slide in from a former pitch that I did about this. This is what I requested from an audience of if people were looking for ways to help. And I left it here because I wanted to just be open about where we are at as a project. We are not only launching a nonprofit, which I want to be clear, I'm fundamentally against. If I may offer an editorial, I wish so many more nonprofits would collapse into each other and combine forces. But I tried twice with local nonprofits to work this workforce effort into the mission alignment of their organizations. And so far, I've failed at both of those too. And it is for that reason and that reason alone that we have started as a nonprofit. Also, so that we can provide funds and sub grants to all of the grassroots organizations under our umbrella. So we are simultaneously building that ship and figuring out our model of operation while also actively growing, expanding, making sure that we have all the correct supports to do this. So these are the things that I am coming to the table with on my mind. So we are very excited to work on answering some of these big questions alongside you all. We are especially excited to share notes with those who are willing. As I mentioned, one of our goals and through our existing partnerships that we're aiming for is to get an actual data snapshot of what is the green economy, how can we improve it, et cetera, et cetera. So anywhere that we can get that information and share that information, we happily raise our hands. So I think that might be my last slide, but maybe we'll just double check, Amara. That's it. That's all she wrote. Thank you again so much for allowing me the space to share. I want to wish everyone a happy Giving Tuesday that has to fundraise today. And I'm just so excited to find ways that we can work on solving these really big picture things together. And I want to thank NOAA for creating the grant opportunity where we can really ask these questions in a holistic way and not feel so limited. I'll just end the sentence there. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you so much, Tatiana. See, and we have no questions, and folks, feel free to keep sending questions in. And then moving on to our next presentation, it is with Lorraine, training a climate-ready workforce to manage the impacts of climate change on water resources in Ohio coastal communities. Hi, Lorraine.
Hi, Phil. Thank you so much for organizing this. Well, here I am again, explaining a little bit more about what we are trying to do here in coastal vulnerable communities of Ohio at the coastline of Lake Erie. Next slide, please. So Lake Erie is the warmest and most biological productive of the Great Lakes, and basically it offers diverse coastal resources to its 12 million residents and supports more than 11 billion in annual revenue for local business. So it is quite clear the importance of Lake Erie at providing these coastal communities crucial ecosystem services. But this system is actually threatened by change in climate. Challenges that have emerged and being exacerbated by climate change have included the introduction of invasive species and the spread of toxic algal blooms that have led to several incidents in those regions, principally the communities that we are focused on here. And an example here was in Toledo in 2014, where toxic blooms in the water treatment systems led to increase the water bills and the water system shutoffs. A big economic and also social impact right over there. Another example is related to urban infrastructure, stormwater and sewage overflows caused by
runoff and coastal erosion, and also due to increased extreme events. And that was evident in three of the communities that we are focused on here, which is Lorain, Erie, and Cuyahoga counties. Next slide, please. So what are then the needs in terms of workforce in this like four Ohio coastal communities of Lake Erie? Basically, over 13,000 entry-level jobs were fulfilled back in 2022 because those job seekers, they did not possess technological or digital awareness skills. So, although there were job postings, 90% of those included some digital component and like in knowledge of different like softwares to coding skills, but job seekers lack those knowledges, principally when it comes to big data management, code writing, and the analysis and use of data to provide insights to solutions or innovative solutions for industries in those specific locations here in Ohio. Next slide, please. Not only that, not only when it comes to the technical or skills needs here, but also Lucas, which encompass the Toledo region here, Lorain, and Cuyahoga counties. They are counties in Ohio that are under distress with high unemployment rates and per capita income lower than 80% of the nationwide average of the U.S. counties. So when it comes to Lucas and Erie counties, we also anticipate a shortage in the water sector, workforce shortage of 41% for drinking water industries and 44% for like wastewater operators that will go through retirement by 2028. So we are trying to address these specific needs of workers in these four communities with specifically stormwater infrastructure kind of maintenance and also inspection skills, but also data savvy experts. In the city of Cleveland, in the Cuyahoga County, here in the other most kind of east side of the map there, they are also trying to emphasize and recruit employees that have like sustainability and water conservation kind of knowledge, practice knowledge, because of their strategic plan or economic plan that involves clean water and green infrastructure priorities. So we're gonna tackle several of these needs with like a set of very specific and tailored trainings. Next slide, please. So what is our goal? Our goal is to train at least 100 climate-ready workers, including technicians, scientists, and engineers. So by those terminologies, you can see the levels of training we might be providing here to fulfill these specialized workforce needs of the water industry in the Great Lakes. We are tackling now Lake Erie, but it is evident once this program is in place, it can, spread throughout the Great Lakes region and beyond. We are a program with a design phase to design our micro-credential certified curriculum, and then there will be an implementation phase where all these 100 trainees will go through a hands-on training and then be placed in the job market within our employers network. Next slide. So what are our goals? Number one, we want to address this need for highly skilled workers in these specific underserved and climate vulnerable communities, most specifically Toledo, Lucas County, Erie County, Sandusky, Lorain, and Cleveland. And then link these climate ready workers or trainees to climate service providers, business, and training institutions to kind of create this holistic workforce that it's going to be able to address these water system challenges and accelerate economic growth in these targeted communities. Next. For goal A, the first goal here, how are we going to address the need? So as you can see here, we have 5 different rings, and these rings represent the level of training, trainings that we're going to be providing. So those trainings range from workshop trainings, micro credentials, to even graduate level degrees within these next 4 years. So based on the quick assessment that we did before, we knew about the award from our employer network, from those committed partners, we realized the need for more tech-savvy workers in the water quality monitoring realm, in the geospatial analytics kind of information and technology, in the stormwater management sectors, and engineering or sustainable development as a whole. So right now, what we are trying to do, we are exactly in this design phase right over here in the left kind of portion of the more targeted plot here, where we are surveying and creating this holistic, within this holistic group of partners, to try to understand what would be the best climate resilient curriculum to address the specific needs of each one of those partners we have within this, that are within this water industry realm of the Lake Erie coastline. So yeah, we are in this design curriculum phase right now, and gathering inputs from our partners to then concomitantly recruiting, but then to get this hands-on training in place and employ those trainees. And during that, we are providing tech support, laptops, and showing sensor technology to these trainees, and trying to provide childcare, food assistance, and transportation for those trainees in need, together with our coalition and community partner in the region. Next. And for our second main goal, which is linking the partners to the workforce, we wouldn't be able to do that without partners. And here again is that holistic array of partners that have already committed to help us place this 100 trainees in the job market, and also help us tailor those trainings that will be there after these 4 years of work that we will be doing, so that other agencies, organizations, institutions, and communities could take advantage of these trainings through the NOAA platform, in order to elevate not only their community, climatically speaking, but also the socioeconomic status of those targeted regions. Next. In terms of timeline, how this program design and implementation, of when it actually will occur. Next slide, please. And I think there is another slide. So exactly. So we are currently in the design phase, 2024 to 2025 there, where we have met with our partners, released a survey to gather input on what types of jobs they have in place, what types of trainings they are most in need, so that we can tailor all the material that we already have built at Ohio State and within our partners network to build the best climate resilient curriculum for their own needs. And also, concomitantly, we are doing recruiting. We right now have already placed a master's student from our HBCU, or historically Black Community University here at Ohio State, as a master's student, getting a degree in watershed management, which was also one of the interests from our network of partners. But we are currently recruiting not only undergraduate level trainees, but high schoolers, techs, and people that are in need of those trainings from these specific communities and within our partners network as well. With that, I will open for questions. I think that's my next final slide. So thank you, NOAA, for believing in our work, and thanks to all the partners and the project lead involved. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. I'm checking our question box, and I don't currently see any questions. Folks, feel free to send it if you have any later. Lorraine, do you have anything else? Perfect. Thank you. And next up, we will have Glenda, Maya, and Irene with Tribal Stewards, Cultivating Tribal Leadership and Equity in Natural Resource Co-Stewardship and Climate Resilience. Hi, Maya.
Hi there. It's like wait for everyone else to hop on. All right. So hello everybody. I'm Maya Escobedo. I was unable to attend the introduction thing, so hi, nice to meet you all. Slide. Oh, another slide, please. Wait, back one. Oh, are we missing? We're missing a slide. Okay. Let's see. So there was a slide that was supposed to talk about why we're doing this work, and really what that slide is on is oh, a whole lot of work, but that's fine. So why we are doing this work, namely is because climate change disproportionately affects the ecological resilience, cultural practices, and the health of indigenous tribes. The Tribal Stewards Initiative champions tribal leadership and co-stewardship, prioritizing the integration of tribal knowledge systems and community values into climate resilience strategies. Also, it's really important to acknowledge that we're focusing on place-based knowledges, and that's really wonderful because it's in partnership and collaboration with local tribal communities. Slide. So there's really three different eras of Indian education, and the first era is missionary domination, which was really during the 16th and 19th century. That really focused on church and state missionaries and really pushed the white supremacy narrative in education. The second era would be the federal government domination, which is during the 19th and 20th centuries, and that was really heavily focused on boarding schools and the production of labor. So teaching Native youth and kids, preparing them how to be ready to work within labor. The third era of Indian education is the self-determination period, which is the mid-20th, which will be present. And that really focused on self-determination of education. And that's really great for tribal communities that are able to create what they want to teach their youth and their kids. But unfortunately, that kind of stops once our children actually enter into college or post-secondary education. And so that's the really great thing about the Tribal Stewards program is we're kind of picking up that piece that's missing there. Slide. And I'm going to pass it to Linda.
All right, thank you. And can you hear me okay? Thank you. All right, great. So I just wanted to ground the work that we're doing by, showing a definition of sovereign and inherent rights. Here in Washington State, we have 29 tribes that are federally recognized. Some of those have treaty rights, I believe about 21 of them, and then the others are executive order tribes. There are also tribes that have usual and accustomed territory here in Washington State, such as Nez Perce and Umatilla tribes. And tribal sovereignty refers to the right of American Indians and Alaska Natives to govern themselves. The U.S. Constitution recognizes Indian tribes as distinct governments. So we're not stakeholders, tribes are partners and have, with a few exceptions, the same powers as federal and state governments to regulate their internal affairs. Sovereignty for tribes includes the right to establish their own form of government, determine membership requirements, and enact legislation, and establish law enforcement and court systems. And along with this, because of all of the data collecting that we will be going forward with, is a definition I'll just say quickly on data sovereignty, which is a concept that has operationalized through policy, tribal governments' right to access data regarding their citizens. Data access is key to planning and prioritizing policy decisions. Tribes' access to educational data is through processes of data collection as well. And analysis includes the right to participate in the review and analysis of data for context. And from a tribal government perspective, data shared across educational systems is important while tackling educational, health, and economic inequities experienced across tribal communities. Next slide, please. And, why do we do this work? Well, we are still here, and, this is what this slide is all about. And this, the Bolt decision, which had its 50th anniversary this last year, is a landmark lawsuit which reaffirmed treaty fishing rights after decades of intertribal activism. And it was inspired by the civil rights movement. So 50 years later, we look back at how far we've come and today's remnants of the fish wars. So the Bolt decision really recognized co-management between the state of Washington and 20 Northwest Treaty tribes and reaffirmed the treaty and inherent rights and tribal sovereignty of tribal governments. So you could say it was ahead of its time. It's still, it recognizes, we want to recognize that in our work now and what we're doing today, and that we are still here. And I'll go over to Irene. Next slide.
So tribes hold a strong priority in developing a workforce for climate adaptation and for developing their own workforce of their own people. And you can see in this quote from the Status of Tribes and Climate Change report that they're prioritizing passing down knowledge from elders to youth, workforce development, professional training to increase technical and managerial expertise, and really equitable and ethical use of Indigenous knowledge in Western science. And so this priority really informs the types of changes that we're making to our programs to be more responsive to this tribal workforce need and priority. Next slide. So in our surveying and outreach to partners and review of our existing natural resource programs and kind of what are the missing needs, the employers routinely say we work with tribes all the time and we don't have the skill sets in ethical tribal engagement protocols. There's many people in natural resources. DNR department in Washington State is the whitest department, state entity, and they work with tribes all the time in a co-management framework. And so people going into this profession need to have experiences working with tribal people and entities. They need training in inherent rights, sovereignty, and tribal history so that they can understand the co-management framework that they're within and how to uphold the federal trust responsibility that's codified in those treaties to ensure that tribal people can utilize their resources and make decisions about their resources to preserve their cultural continuity and adapt to climate change. It is now required for federal employees to utilize traditional ecological knowledge in land use management planning, and that's really a big underskilling in that. All students benefit from place-based education. It adds relevance to their education. It grounds abstract concepts into real relevant, authentic application. Every student needs work-based learning opportunities, and there is definitely a gap in the current curriculum and in the workforce, the current workforce in climate adaptation and climate justice. Tribal students, Maya spoke to the legacy of Indian education that's created a lot of disparities in tribal education. Our institutions weren't designed to serve these populations, and so a lot of our work in the Tribal Stewards is about redesigning our existing pathways to serve tribal students and really honor where they come from and their needs. And so we're working a lot to develop culturally relevant education pathways. A lot of our time and effort is dedicated to outreach and recruitment, into community building on campus and off, into providing holistic support, building tribal partnerships so that students have experience with tribal mentors and tribal employers. They see themselves represented in those careers. And really, a lot of what Maya's work is doing in particular is supporting faculty who are predominantly white in these programs to be responsive and develop more skills in supporting tribal student success, and to do these critical curriculum integrations that are needed, of bringing traditional ecological knowledge, of bringing climate adaptation into the curriculum and making the curriculum more place-based. Next slide. So the objectives are to develop government-to-government relationships, and create MOAs between tribes and colleges. That's going back to tribes are sovereign governments. They need to be engaged in a formal government-to-government partnership. A lot of the effort in year one is dedicated to those meetings and to us sort of supporting that formal relationship building. I spoke to training faculty in redesign of these natural resource programs to offer culturally responsive career guided pathways with a tribal focus. A lot of recruitment and holistic support for tribal students, integrating these essential workforce skills that we spoke to previously, and integrating traditional ecological knowledge and place-based learning experiences. So a lot of our tribal partners are providing internships, field sites, authentic learning experiences in place as part of the partnership. And then fostering collaboration with employers to ensure quality employment outcomes and work-based learning. Next slide. This is our framework. Again, the backbone is government-to-government relationships. The faculty learning community is a year-long professional development offering that ends in a climate camp. At every college, new tribal student success professionals are hired to provide holistic support and intentional pathways. And we hope to engage over 18 tribes in new tribal partnerships to provide both place-based learning and employment for tribal students. And the whole goal here is tribal student success. Seeing them graduate at the end, like Maya did. Picture. And the other piece of our model is really leveraging the wealth and expertise of place and the tribal communities within the service areas of our colleges to support tribal students. And so in this model, the tribal navigator at the college works with the community college partner, with the natural resource program faculty, with the Department of Tribal Natural Resources, with the tribal council and community, with the tribal elders and the scholars, and with the local environmental and cultural resources, all to provide impactful and relevant education for that tribal student. And this is trying to replicate the wisdom of the education approaches of the tribal communities and our known tribal student success strategies, and to create space for those knowledge systems for representation in the curriculum and for a lot of learning at all levels of our institution, how to be good partners to tribal communities and better serve them. Next slide. Thank you. If you have any questions, please reach out. We're excited for this opportunity to participate in this network and for this funding for our state.
Thank you so much, Irene, Glenda, and Maya. We did receive one question. So, okay. Is there a particular pitfall or obstacle pertaining to tribal sovereignty that particularly concerns your team in engaging a climate-ready workforce effort? For example, a cultural or educational lens we may have at NOAA about climate resilience.
Can you say that question again?
Yeah, is it in the chat?
Oh yeah, let me pay. I can also easily paste it so it's easier for you guys to discuss. We have a little time. Oops. The question is there a particular pitfall or obstacle pertaining to tribal sovereignty that particularly concerns your team in engaging a climate-ready workforce effort? E.g., a cultural or educational lens we may have at NOAA about quote-unquote climate resilience?
I mean, I could try to talk about that a little bit. I wouldn't say a pitfall, rather, I would say a completely opposite. Support a completely different point of view. Working with tribal communities, each tribe comes with their own vast amounts of knowledge, because nobody knows the land better than the tribal communities that have lived there since time immemorial. Their connection, their education with not working solely like to learn from the land is completely different than the way Western culture teaches us to study something. It's a completely different type of education, and I think that's the beautiful part about doing this work with tribal communities, is because we're bringing a whole additional set of knowledge systems that pre-exist, you know, the education that's been traditionally here in the United States. So I would say it supports our efforts. One of the things that is hard is that a lot of our faculty members haven't been taught this right through traditional education within a Western lens. Uh, and so that's kind of what part of our program is to help our faculty relearn what science is, especially through an Indigenous lens.
Yeah, and really quickly, I'll just add, even in, Washington Department of Natural Resources, there is a disassociation or kind of a separation of education, workforce development, and, and natural resources, even though they can really be collectively seen and built upon. Leadership, I previously worked at the Department of Natural Resources as a director of tribal affairs, and that was something I was consistently trying to build, was workforce development. I saw the plan that Maya and Irene had, and it was something I had thought, and it was a piece that I had seen and wanted to do in my own strategic plan, and it was just like things aligned and stars crossed, and it made a lot of sense, and they were building something that I had been wanting to build already. And I think this curriculum that we have is a structure through the colleges that can work into the systems. And people, especially at these DNRs, not even just Washington DNR, but tribal DNRs, will be able to work more collectively and see those pathways. So not a pitfall, but something that we can look forward to.
Thank you so much for the insight. That was great. Thank you, you guys. All right, our next presentation is with Kelly Tagarino. Apologies if I mispronounced your last name, Kelly, and with the project Empowering a Resilient Workforce for American Samoa. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Paul. All right, so malo lava leon sa'i. Thank you for your patience and sticking around. I know this is getting towards the end. We can just move to the next slide. I wanted to spend another minute just explaining a little more about our territory on this slide before we move on. For those who don't know, American Samoa has 5 high islands and 2 atolls. They're very small, and so you can make out Swains Island at the top of that blow up square with the labels of the names of the islands. So Swains Island is now an uninhabited atoll, but it had been inhabited for quite a while, and was a copra plantation site. And then Rose Atoll, down at the bottom of that pop-out screen, is an uninhabited atoll that has never been inhabited, and is a national wildlife refuge, as well as a national marine monument now, and encircled by a national marine sanctuary, but with provisions that American Samoans can still fish there in traditional manners. And then in our high islands, which are all inhabited, our main island is called Tutuila, and that's the island I'm on. About 90% of our population lives here. And even our big island is quite small. It's only about 21 miles tip to tip, east to west, and not more than a mile wide at its widest. And then next to Tutuila is the island of Aunuu, and that's about a mile offshore. And then our Manua Islands are Ofu and Olasenga, which are connected by a bridge. And then a few miles south of that is the island of Ta'u. So our one utility company does cover all of our inhabited islands. So I just wanted to point that out to give you a better understanding of where we're spread out. And then also on that note related to our population, when I moved down here in 2009, population was about 60,000, and now we're down to about 47,000. So not quite the same level of population reduction that Puerto Rico has seen, but similar complications with brain drain, etc. Next slide, please. And so as our utility company tries to continue providing services in all of these islands, of course, the increasing cascade of issues from sea level rise are getting worse and worse. I mentioned this in the introductions and was echoing what Dr. Spinrad had shared about our one and only hospital having to shut down everything but their ER and ICU for 5 days. As a resident, as a mother, as somebody who cares about their community, obviously we don't want to see that. And it wasn't just the hospital. There were schools, there were shops, there were other entities impacted by that. And so when this opportunity came up, I said, you know what, I think it makes a lot of sense for American Samoa to get support here because we have the highest rate of relative sea level rise, not just in the US nation, but anywhere in the world within the NOAA tide gauge network. And so to help us kind of meet these needs, what we really needed was bringing in a certified trainer who can do the training in place and go out with the team and help them understand what they need, both in terms of skill sets on a day-to-day, but also what do they need to meet the US regulations. Because right now, for example, we have a new filtration plant that was built to manage this increasingly contaminated water, both from salinity and sediment, because we have a lot of wells that we call goody groundwater under direct influence. And they are unfortunately some of our largest producing wells, and we can't shut them down. Otherwise, there's not enough water pressure. So because we cannot afford to send our water team off island for the 2 to 4 weeks that they would need for the training, because then who's running the water? No one. It's a small place, you know? So with this approach, which was again crafted and requested by the ASPA team themselves, we can have our trainer here for 2 whole months in person, working with the team, putting together a training plan to address what they need to meet those certs and what they need to actually keep this infrastructure running. And I mentioned this briefly in the introductions in terms of one of our partners. The company is called False Cognitive Services. And the local lead for that company has been here since the 90s. And he put together this really wonderful online hazards reporting tool called Tautua. You can see in the inset of the image there. This tool he created as a passion project after a once in a 500-year storm swell hit us at the high tide of a king tide. We had the worst flooding our territory has seen since the 2009 tsunami. Access to our one and only hospital completely shut off unless you wanted to go up the mountain. Access to our seaport between Aunuu and our island of Tutuila, again, where our only hospital is, completely closed out. I have amazing respect for the ferry drivers who surfed those waves into that port to get the people the medical treatment they needed. Our EOC, Emergency Operation Command here, went down immediately. And so the guy who created this Tautua tool built it so that people can communicate directly with each other, but also document these needs. So you can take photos, you can take video, or you can just put in a verbal typed out comment. And then it's all hosted on this tool, and you can sort it by hazard or by village or by date, etc. And so what I had asked of Tautua was if they could create a non-public facing facet of this tool for ASPA to use, which they've already done for other entities here, including our hospital. And so our hospital does things with this tool like build on a volunteer blood bank, because we have no real blood bank at the hospital. So they just put out a call every time they need donors. And so we wanted to build on that and provide this as a resource for the ASPA team, so that when they're out in the field, they can take these photos and videos and not have to deal with the time suck and bandwidth that would be required to build their own tool to do this. And so they'll use this both in terms of the duration of this project to help them understand what they need to address these infrastructure needs, but also they can use that as a repository for future grant proposals and funding requests. Another partner in our project is here at the American Samoa Community College, and it's our Trades and Technology Division. So again, we're a small remote place, and so our Trades and Technology Division serves as our technical journeyman licensing entity. If you want to be a licensed welder, for example, in American Samoa, you come to the college, and they run these programs, as we say, after hours, after the 4 o'clock end of work time, so that folks who are working can come here in the evening and take these courses, not for college credit, but just for that certification. So that way you don't have to go through the whole placement test and, you know, taking all your prereqs. No, you can just sign straight up for that course, and if you pass, you get your certificate. And so we're going to be working with our Trades and Technology Division by providing them the supplies they need in terms of funding for those supplies. And they will be able to run the courses that ASPA needs for things like electricians and welding and core foundational skill sets. Another thing I want to mention on that point is, I think probably everybody on this call knows, most of the IRA BIL derivative funding streams are reimbursable, right? That don't work here. So I am really glad that I'm able to leverage University of Hawaii resources, who can manage an almost $2 million reimbursable grant, because here in American Samoa, nobody has a credit card in the government. The college, we don't have a credit card. Everything's by check. If you want to write a check to someone, you got to have that money in the account. So I worked closely with UH fiscal team to gain approval to be able to pay out in large quantities advance payments on a quarterly basis, to enable these types of approaches to work here, because otherwise you're asking people to work for free until they can invoice, and that just doesn't work on a checking system. All right, next slide, please. So all of this is coming together in a way that I hope will address this issue. And I'm so sorry, I included a GIF, which obviously doesn't work in a PDF format, so my apologies here, but this is a GIF that was put together by our NOAA co-ops division, who for quite a long time refused to believe that we were sinking. And co-ops is the division that houses the tides team and the folks who put in the tide gauges for NOAA. But they did come around to believing us in 2019, and now Eric White, who oversees all the Pacific tide gauges, has become a good personal friend, a real advocate for our needs. And this gift actually came out of his pushing for more support for American Samoa. And if it was running, what you would see is essentially two crossing lines of our elevation going down and our sea level coming up, crossing at the date of the tsunami, more or less. And so it became very clear that it was in fact attributed to the earthquakes that caused the tsunami that was driving this post-seismic subsidence. And so as sort of an overarching way of communicating this, I try and explain to people that American Samoa has seen more sea level rise in the past 10, 11 years than we saw in the century before that. And it's just been an enormously rapid increase. So I like to say, you know, we are a true frontline community when it comes to sea level rise. And I also want to add, I am originally from Florida, and so I work for Hawaii Sea Grant, and I get a lot of questions about, well, is there pushback on the data in the sea level rise viewer you built for American Samoa? No. I have not met a single person here who doesn't believe this is happening. Next slide, please. I also want to add that most of our coastal infrastructure is between our main road and the ocean. And there's only like 1 to 2 meters of land there in most places. So it is a real issue in terms of infrastructure. So these are just screen grabs from the sea level rise viewer that I was able to help create with a wonderful team of supporters. And in the top image, this is our sea level projection to 2100 on a digital elevation model from 2012. The bottom one is a digital elevation model from 2022. So you can see, I know it's kind of small, but you can see the difference in terms of the more red, meaning more sea level rise. And that little triangle thing, that's our only international airport runway. So it's very important to us. Next slide, please. And in the next slide, we're going to see similar thing for our Aunuu Island. And as you can see, it's quite dire for them there. And all the red is covering the village in Aunuu. And so it's up to them to decide, but a lot of them don't want to move up the mountain and they want to stay where they're at. So it's their decision on how to adapt because of local tenure or traditional land tenure. Next slide, please. So having this information is just to empower our community to help plan. And I just wanted to point out real quickly, this was a climate change framework that was put together in 2012. And even back then, they noted contamination of our freshwater sources. Next slide. I did help contribute to that old framework. And so now it's nice to kind of have that full circle moment where I'm getting to help us address these needs. So as I said, because of our unique immigration, we need to do the training in place for today's issues and tomorrow's. Next slide, please. And I don't know why the text got garbled there, but we are looking into creative solutions like standalone solar powered desalination plants. And our real goal is just water security, right? And next slide, please. Because without water, we're not going to be able to stay here very long. So in general, we're looking to fill 100 vacancies, and that's kind of a brief breakdown of the positions that they would be in. From engineering level down to welding and construction workers. Next slide, please. And I'm excited to say that even though UH only accepted this award last week, our trainer has been meeting virtually with the water team already, and he has his tickets booked to be down here in January to get the training going on the ground. So with that, Whakatai Tele Lava, I want to echo the appreciation of learning from everyone, and thank you, Po, for you and your team's excellent facilitating. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. We do have one question for you. What prompted the closure of the hospital for those 5 days? Could you go give us a little bit more details?
Yeah. So going back to that concept of the Goody well, groundwater under direct influence, we had an enormously heavy rain event, which is not unusual in Samoa, where we have, for those who know, like Kauai Island, like we get like 300 inches a year in certain places. But the periodicity is getting more extreme. So really heavy rain event, getting lots and lots of sediment into the municipal water system. They had to shut down some of those high producing wells because it was so bad. And the hospital did not have its reserve tanks filled, as I understand they should have. So now ASPA is doing some cross training with the maintenance folks at the hospital to ensure that they understand the importance of checking their reservoir tanks. So that was in general the issue. And so hopefully we will be addressing that by getting the training we need to run that filtration system that was built to address those Goody wells.
Thank you so much, Kelly. On behalf of the NOAA team, I just want to say thank you to all the people who attended, who spoke. Also to all the ASL interpreters for helping us out today. We really appreciate you. A couple of closing things. Tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll be having our first partnership building discussion, and that is a closed session only for our awardees and their designated partners. Otherwise, everything is public and will be on. And we will be compiling all the questions and sharing it with folks to get responses, and we'll be sure to share slides. And at the end of the symposium, we'll be sure to send out the links to the presentations, the recording, and Q's and A's. Thank you so much for your time, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.